Howdy, folks. Today we're looking at Action Comics number 23 in Facsimile from 1940 in DC Comics. By spring of that year, the superhero had reached a kind of critical mass, with the trickle of early breakthroughs following the release of the first issue of Action, expanding to a deluge as the new decade ticked over. The space of just a few weeks, not months, but weeks, saw the first appearances of The Flash, Green Lantern, the Spectre, Dr. Fate, and the Joker hit stands, along with today's specimen, the first appearance of Superman's arch-nemesis Lex Luthor. Yes, as incredible as it may seem, the first appearances of the Joker and Lex Luthor rubbed shoulders on the stands, a sign of just how fast things were moving. Only point of fact, there was no first name. In the beginning, he was just Luthor, and if the Joker was immediately recognizable from the very first story, the same cannot be said for Luthor. When we meet him, and he is no stereotypical mad scientist, although he describes himself as having the brain of a super genius, nor is he obsessed with destroying Superman as a great arch-rival. No, this Luthor is a thuggish and brutal warlord, a wannabe dictator plotting to take advantage of the chaos caused by war in mainland Europe. The primary threat to his plan is not Superman, but Clark Kent, who travels to Europe on the trail of the elusive madman. As with earlier Superman stories, Siegel and Shuster are scrupulous about placing their hero in a recognizable world defined with tangible threats. If the nations of Galania and Turan are fictional, the idea of aspiring dictators conquering vast swaths of Europe was not, as by the spring of 1940, much of the continent had already fallen to the German army. In his earliest form, it must be acknowledged that Luthor was directly inspired by the greatest villain of them all, with subsequent appearances tempering the resemblance as the Superman strip introduced more and more fantastic elements. As the years went by, of course, Luthor would change to reflect subsequent mores. The rough-hewn Luthor of the first appearances eventually became the crime-obsessed sociopath of the Silver Age, motivated by a personal animus against Superman, a constant even as the character evolved, adding nuance and backstory as his milieu shifted in real time to reflect cultural anxieties. He later became a businessman inspired by the real-world antics of certain Manhattan real estate moguls, and later still a politician who used his financial resources to buy the office of the presidency. We must also acknowledge that yes, the earliest version of Luthor even have hair, a total shock of ginger. That he soon became bald is most likely down to an artist error that stuck. As for the rest of the issue, it remains a notable feature of all the early hero magazines that the lead feature is rarely the most developed. The Superman strip, for its potency as a story, is still crude compared to the Sheldon Moldoff and especially Fred Gardenier work that fills the back of the book. Gardinier's Zatara strips were, by 1940, already as good as anything the young industry was capable of, well drawn and imaginative. It's just that Zatara was a bit of a stiff, and certainly no match for the charismatic cover feature.